This time, everything was different. No longer the gloom of an unjust death, no fear of unseen forces. Only pure grief and a strange serenity remained. The farm's atmosphere had changed. The moldy, fishy river stench had vanished, replaced by the familiar scent of oak wood and faint baking bread from the kitchen. The house no longer felt cold or watched. It was a home again, though part of it was forever gone. This burial wasn't just family and close friends. The whole village came, not out of curiosity, but to show repentance, respect, and final love for Lisa. They had doubted, whispered rumors, but now truth was revealed, and they came to bid farewell to a village daughter who had suffered a tragic fate. The funeral procession stretched from the farm to the hilltop cemetery. A silent, solemn parade. The oak coffin rested on a flower-strewn cart. Behind it walked the DuPonts. Pierre stood tall, face stern but eyes no longer desperate. Sophie, supported by Antoine on one side and Felipe on the other, still wept, but her tears were now of sorrow, not terror. They chose a new resting place for Élise, dry ground in the sun. Under an old maple shade, the fresh grave was mounded, soil dark and new. As they arrived, a light drizzle began, tiny drops like heaven's tears. Father Henry began the service, his voice, no longer tense or urgent as in the summoning, was warm and comforting. "We gather here today," he said, "not to mourn a lost soul, but to send a pure one into God's embrace." Lisa DuPont endured a terrible trial, an ultimate injustice, but her faith and her family's love proved stronger than evil. Justice has been served, the wrong has been righted. Now let us pray together that Elise's soul may serenely enter eternity. Prayers rose, mingling with the patter of rain and the crowd's sniffles. Antoine stood silent, staring at the coffin. He didn't cry. He felt only profound emptiness. The battle was over. He had won. But victory's price was steep. As pallbearers lowered the coffin into the grave, a gentle breeze stirred, not the howling cold of past nights, but a warm, soft one caressing cheeks. It carried white lily petals, scattering them in the air before they settled softly on the grave. And in that breeze's rustle, Antoine heard it, a whisper, faint, close, as if someone stood beside him. Elise's voice, clear and serene. "Thank you. Goodbye." Antoine turned. No one was there, but he knew he hadn't imagined it. The tears he'd held back so long finally flowed. The service ended. People approached one by one, laying a flower or handful of soil on the grave and whispering farewells. Gradually they dispersed, leaving the cemetery in peace. Only the DuPonts, Felipe, and Father Henry remained. As his parents and the others started down the hill, Antoine lingered alone. He wanted a moment more with her. A thin mist rose from the river, not the thick, eerie fog of before, but a white, ethereal veil. It softly enveloped the new grave, lending the scene an ethereal grace. And through that mist, he saw her. Élise stood across the grave. She was no longer the terrifying, dripping ghost of his dreams. She wore a simple white dress, chestnut hair gently waving in the breeze. She looked healthy, radiant, more beautiful than ever, and most importantly, she smiled, a gentle, loving smile. Free of any suffering, she said nothing. She just stood, gazing at him, her eyes holding all she wanted to say: gratitude, sisterly love, a final farewell. She raised her hand slightly, waving. Antoine smiled back through tears. "Goodbye, Élise," he whispered, as if in response. Élise's form began to fade, not abruptly, but dissolving into the white mist, growing transparent. Then vanishing completely, the mist cleared. Only the flower-strewn grave remained, and Antoine alone under the easing drizzle. The horror was over, the haunting gone. Only enduring memory lingered, but now, Antoine knew his sister truly rested. Her soul was at peace. He turned, descending the hill where his family waited. A dark chapter of their lives had closed. Ahead lay a long road to healing, but they would walk it together. Months passed Normandy's cold. Damp winter enveloped everything, bringing necessary stillness. Élise Dupont's horrific murder and Jacques Delacroix's mad confession had become history. A chilling tale retold by warm firesides. To the world, the story was over. But for those involved, it was the start of a long, quiet journey. Healing back in Paris. Antoine felt like a stranger. The Sorbonne's ancient halls, friends' lively philosophical debates, all seemed from another world. An innocent one he no longer belonged to. He had seen the veil between worlds torn, faced human cruelty and otherworldly terror. That experience had changed him forever. He lost interest in abstract theories. Instead, he spent free time in Paris's dusty ancient libraries, burying himself in forgotten tomes on folklore, Normandy's ghostly legends, ancient rituals, and restless spirits. It was no longer academic curiosity. It was an effort to understand, to name and explain what he'd witnessed. He read of river-wandering ghosts, curse-bound souls, love and hatred's power transcending death. The study brought no answers, but comfort that he wasn't the only one to witness the extraordinary. The haunting was gone. No strange noises, no mysterious puddles, but his bond with Élise remained. Occasionally in dreams he saw her, no longer nightmares. He dreamed of her in a sunlit sunflower field, smiling and waving. He dreamed of hearing her clear laughter echoing from afar. Those dreams were fleeting, but left warmth and peace. She was there, in a better place, watching over him. Meanwhile, at the Dupont farm, life plodded on. Slow and heavy, grief lingered, an unfillable void. Sophie sometimes absent-mindedly set an extra place at table, then quietly cleared it with teary eyes. Pierre grew quieter, burying himself in farm work to forget. But in loss, a new bond formed. Felipe became indispensable. He visited nearly daily after the forge. He offered no empty comforts, just presence. He helped Pierre mend fences, sat silently sipping tea with Sophie by the fire, listening to her Élise stories. He had shared their darkest moment in the summoning, forging a tie stronger than blood. He didn't replace Élise, no one could, but his quiet, steadfast presence filled some emptiness, offering priceless strength and solace. One winter evening, Antoine received a letter from his mother. She wrote of farm routines, everyone's health, how Felipe had helped his father fix the stable door. At the end, a short note: "Today I visited Élise's grave. I saw Mayor Dubois there too. He looked so sad and guilty. Perhaps he still torments himself for rushing to conclude her death as an accident." The name Dubois planted a seed in Antoine's mind. He recalled the man's incompetence and cover-up tendencies. In his Normandy folklore studies, Antoine had stumbled on archived news clippings, stories of mysterious drowning accidents on the Seine over decades, most closed hastily as drunken mishaps or carelessness. A new professional curiosity stirred. He delved deeper, spending a week poring over yellowed newspapers and dusty files. And he found it. A case 20 years old. A young woman drowned near the oak. Ruled accident, but what caught his eye was the investigating chief, Gerald Dubois, father of the current mayor, and the victim, per recorded rumors, had a secret romance with a wealthy local youth, whose family fiercely opposed it. A chilling coincidence. Antoine sat in his tiny Paris room, gazing at the city's neon glow. He held his mother's letter and the old dossier. He felt on the brink of a secret larger than Élise's case. Perhaps his sister's wrong was one link in a chain of hidden tragedies. Truths buried under the Seine's black waters and the power of those guarding reputations. He thought his battle ended, but now he realized it had truly just begun. Asterisk over Easter break, Antoine returned to Normandy. This homecoming differed from before. He wasn't there to rest or wallow in grief. He came with purpose. The old clipping about a 20-year-old accident had sown doubt, sprouting into an unshakable urge. Uncover the truth. The DuPont farm showed signs of rebirth. Sophie had planted wild daisy beds in the garden, tiny, resilient blooms pushing through spring's chill. Philippa's forge hammer rang occasionally, a sound of life and labor. Grief remained, an uninvited guest never leaving, but the family had learned to live with it. They supported Antoine's resolve, knowing justice for Élise was incomplete while other wrongs hid in shadows. Antoine spent most time in the village archive, a cold, damp basement room under town hall. Iron shelves sagged under rusty files, ledgers and rope-bound old newspapers. The air reeked of aged paper and dust. Light came from a weak ceiling bulb and a ground-level window casting dim. Hazy beams, asterisk day after day, Antoine pored over brittle yellowed pages. He read faded police reports, village council minutes, local articles on forgotten events. He sought one name, Colette Moreau. The young woman drowned 20 years ago. Her case file was thin. A few typed pages hastily concluding she slipped into the river on an evening walk. The investigator, as Antoine knew, was Chief Gerald Dubois, the current mayor's father. But closer reading revealed anomalies. No proper autopsy, only external notes. A witness, a fisherman, initially reported hearing an argument and a woman's cry for help, but his official statement claimed he'd misheard. As Antoine turned the old pages, a strange sensation overtook him, as if invisible sorrow, unspoken grievance, emanated from the ink. Occasionally, a cold draft slipped through cracks, rustling pages into dry, mournful whispers. Shadows in room corners thickened, obscuring lines, as if some force resisted exposing this secret. His haunted month experience had heightened his sensitivity. He knew buried tragedies never truly vanished. They left echoes, pain's resonance in their places. Finally, after days of searching, he found a clue, not in police files, but a church donation ledger. An unusually large sum from the Dubois family weeks after Colette's death. The predecessor priest's note, for prayers for a misguided soul's rest. Then, the letter, tucked in an old birth registry, perhaps deliberately hidden, trembling. Desperate handwriting, Colette Moreau's to a close friend. She described her secret affair with a young, powerful man he promised marriage, then abandoned her upon learning of her pregnancy. She wrote she'd meet him one last time by the river, begging him to take responsibility. The man, the letter revealed, was Jean-Jacques Dubois, now known village-wide as Mayor Dubois. The pieces fit. A dark picture of deceit and cover-up emerged. Colette hadn't had an accident. She'd confronted Jean-Jacques for justice. And somehow died. His father, Chief Gerald, twisted the truth with authority, pressuring the witness, closing the case swiftly to shield his son's political future. Now Antoine understood why Mayor Dubois rushed to call Élise's death an accident. Not just incompetence, a conditioned reflex. A cover-up instinct born of his own past sin. Facing a similar tragedy, a young woman dead by the river. Suspect from a powerful family, his first instinct was to smother it, bury it, lest investigation unearth his own buried grave. His silence in Élise's case echoed the crime 20 years prior. Antoine closed the dossier. The outside wind howled stronger. Battering the basement window, he felt no fear, only cold fury. Justice for Élise demanded exposing another injustice. A truth hidden too long, he left the dusty archive. Clutching irrefutable proof, spring's late sun warmed his face. He eyed the mayor's office at Road's End. His next confrontation wouldn't be with a mad killer, but a community pillar, a man who'd built his career on a lie and a young woman's life. 1 year, 12 waning and waxing moons. 4 seasons swept Normandy's land. Spring rain, summer sun, autumn winds, winter snow. A year since the horrors of the haunted month. Antoine returned home. This time, the train brought no anxiety. Breathing October's air, it felt fresh, crisp. Scented with ripe orchard apples, the sky held gray clouds, but interspersed with blue expanses and golden sunbeams. This October's Normandy was beautiful as serene. Melancholic autumn beauty. Everything had changed. After Antoine presented irrefutable evidence, an official probe targeted Mayor Dubois, the 20-year secret unearthed. Facing scandal and village pressure, he resigned in disgrace. The village had a new mayor, honest, beloved. Justice, though late, served Colette Moreau and Élise. The DuPont farm regained rhythm. Grief scarred forever, but terror vanished. The house was cozy, peaceful again, on October's last day. Exactly a year since finding Élise's body, Antoine visited her grave alone. He told no one. It was his private pilgrimage. He walked to the hilltop cemetery. The oak forest path no longer threatened. Sunlight filtered through yellow-red leaves, dappling the ground in shimmering light. Footstep leaves rustled as autumn's whisper, not invisible steps. Élise's grave sat beautifully on the sunny slope. Tended meticulously, always fresh flowers today. Antoine brought wild daisies and purple heather. Her favorites, he knelt, gently placing the bouquet on the headstone. Marble reads simply, Élise Dupont. Rest in peace. Hello, Élise, Antoine whispered. A breeze stirred the flowers. He sat long, telling her everything. His Paris studies, future plans, his parents' gradual smiles. Philippa's integration. He spoke as if she sat there, listening with her familiar gentle smile. As he spoke, an unusually warm gust blew. Amid October's chill, it caressed like a tender touch, scented with wildflowers and grass. Antoine closed his eyes. No whisper, no vision. Just feeling profound peace. Invisible warmth, like a distant blessing. He knew it was her. She was here, truly at peace. Leaving the cemetery, Antoine didn't head home. An urge led him riverside, to the ancient oak. He needed to face it once more, closing his life's circle. The former nightmare site was tranquil. The old oak stood sentinel, roots no longer claws. The Seine no longer growled black. Autumn's sun silvered its gentle flow. Waves lapped soothingly, like a lullaby. Antoine stood where a year ago agony peaked. Memories flooded, her pale face, staring eyes, death stench. Despair, rage, vivid, painful, but powerless to frighten, just past, a formed scar. He'd endured his haunted month, battled flesh and blood and unseen demons, survived, pain matured him. Loss taught life's value, October ended. The haunted month curse broken for Antoine. No longer fear and obsession, now remembrance, gratitude. Reclaimed peace, he turned from the river. Walking leaf-strewn paths, autumn wind whispered farewell at his back. Elise's memory lived in his heart, but the haunting stayed behind, dissolved in last year's mist. 1 year after Elise's burial, on a clear Sunday morning, the village's small church brimmed with people again. But no funeral gloom or trial tension. The air was warm, solemn, radiant. Wild daisy and sunflower arrangements brightened with life's colors. Gentle autumn sun filtered through stained glass, casting iridescent patterns on stone floors. The DuPonts held a small memorial, not to revive pain, but celebrate Elise's life and thank the community's support. Father Henry at the pulpit, serene, his sermon focused less on scripture, more on love's power and human resilience. A year ago, he began, voice warmly echoing. Our community endured a terrible tragedy. Darkness enveloping us all. We lost a daughter, sister, friend. But in that darkness we found light. We saw a family's unyielding strength, a brother's courageous quest for justice, a community drawing closer in love. He gazed at the DuPonts in front. Elise's memory endures, but we won't let it be mere pain. Remember her smiles, gentleness, life's love. Let her passing remind us, live better, love more. Never let darkness prevail. No bitter tears, only remembrance and gratitude. As people departed post-service, Antoine, parents Marie, and Felipe lingered in the church. They lit a large candle on the altar, below Saint Joan of Arc's statue where they'd heard the wronged whisper. Its golden flame burned steady, warm, banishing lingering shadows. In that quiet, Antoine felt compelled. He vowed not to God, but Elise's soul. I promise, Élise, this tragedy won't destroy me or our parents. I'll live well, study hard, find happiness. I'll live for us both. I'll make you proud. I have something to tell you all, Antoine said suddenly. Breaking silence, they turned. He breathed deep. For a year, he'd kept his final Élise moments sacred secret, but now time to share. He recounted the cemetery afternoon, the warm gust. Thank you, whisper, then detailed the final vision, Élise in mist. No suffering, radiant and smiling serenely. She's no longer a wronged ghost, Antoine concluded. Voice catching, I believe she's truly at peace. She came to say final goodbye, asterisk, no one spoke after. Sophie wept, but serenely. She'd always believed her daughter lingered. Antoine's tale affirmed it. Pierre's hand on Antoine's shoulder squeezed with empathy. Gratitude. Thank you, son, he said. Thank you for bringing her home, then. Something undone for a year, they embraced. Tightly, Pierre, Sophie, Antoine, Marie, Philippe nearby. Sophie pulled him in. 5 lives tragedy shattered, now clustered. Finding strength, solace in arms. No longer solitary sufferers. A family again, they forgave. Not the killer, his crime unforgivable, but fate, their helplessness. They released hatred, anger that once consumed. To live on, leaving church, autumn sun brighter. The road ahead long, scar unhealing, but they could proceed. they'd live, carrying Élise's memory as guiding torch. Strength not burden, horror now distant memory. Old tale, present, family warmth. Future, first and long promised hope that winter passed. Drenching rains washing tragedy's last traces, spring brought green buds. Fresh air and Jacques Delacroix's final trial at the provincial capital. For Duponsin village, it was ritual, not suspense. His mad preliminary confession sealed fate, but justice demanded final judgment. Law's official nod closing this dark chapter. Courthouse packed again, but atmosphere resolute quiet. Villagers inside, out not spectacle, but justice witnessed. Their presence declared silent protest against injustice. Hiding power, they stood in spring mist. Fortress around Dupont's, ex-mayor Dubois's case exposed too. Past crimes time barred, but Lisa cover-up incompetence ruined him. He lived in contempt of the community he'd ruled. Harsher than prison, Jacques entered. Eerie silence fell. If preliminary he was cornered beast. Now mere shadow, skeletal, eyes hollow, vacant. Staring void, he muttered, startling as if touched, trial swift. Evidence solemnly restated, confession read. Defense pleaded insanity, futile, crimes clear, brutal. Judge asked final words. Jacques ignored him. Dupont's stared ceiling, eyes horrified, screaming, asterisk. She hasn't gone. He rasped desperately. You locked me here, but she finds me. Every night, in dark. I see her face floating in my cup's water. Hear her wet hairbrush concrete floor. Pointing rain-lashed window. Every rain Seine roars. She calls. Once dragged me. Last week in cell, felt her icy hand grip ankle. Pulled a soaked floor. Asterisk, his ravings no longer chaotic. Crowd listened silently, repulsed yet satisfied. Dupont's supernatural horror now his. Otherworldly punishment, scarier than laws. Earthly prison held body. Soul eternally jailed in personal hell, Élise Warden. Please, he sobbed, collapsing. Tell her stop. Can't take. Gavel cracked dry, decisive, silencing madness. Jacques Delacroix, judge intoned firmly. For premeditated murder, court sentences life imprisonment. No parole, justice served, dragged away. Screams echoed hall. Outside crowd parted silently for Dupont's. No celebration, nothing to celebrate, only immense relief. Chests of stone lifted after ages, rain stopped. Rainbow arched horizon, villagers surrounded not empty condolences, but handshakes, quiet hugs. Tragedy forged unity, their small society changed. They learned justice fought for not given. Silence before evil, crime too. Battle truly ended, wicked punished, by law and higher power. Only future's road remained years later. Spring returned to Normandy, vibrant, radiant life. Fields no longer fog-shrouded, but lush emerald. Ancient oaks, once horror sowers, now budded green. Seine no longer black growl, but sun-glinted gentle flow. Dupont Farm rang with laughter today. Grand courtyard party, not autumn's ghostly lanterns, but spring's blue sky, celebrating Antoine. He'd graduated summa cum laude from Sorbonne, not just philosophy, but deep folklore, sociology pursuits post-tragedy. Antoine Center courtyard, accepting congratulations. Now mature man, tall, eyes deep, calm from trials. No longer naive student or grief-blinded brother. Balanced, inner peace found, scanning party, he saw parents laughing. Wrinkles remained, but smiles adorned, child lost pain eternal. But they'd learned onward living, joy in small things. Then Felipe, beside pier, toasting cider. Discussing harvest, years on Felipe Hamley's core. Son-in-law and heart, tie holier than rites. Patience, kindness, quiet love helped darkest days. Never replaced Élise impossible but rebuilt shards. New family from tragedy's foundation, amid joy, Antoine slipped away. Into house fireside, mantle held family photos. Élise is among, she smiled radiantly, blue eyes joy sparkled, we're okay. Sis, Antoine whispered, miss you tons. But living well, he vowed to her memory, never forget. Her recall strength, life's compass, rejoining. He walked alone familiar path to river. Needed final visit, fully closing life's circle. Former watery tomb now life teeming, riverside wildflowers. Butterflies flitting, old oak sentinel, benevolent grandfather sheltering river. Antoine gazed sparkling waters, fearless. River no monster stealing sister. Nature's part homelands, time's eternal flow. Carrying pain, healing he understood. Haunted month, horror not river or spirits. From humanity, jealousy, hate, cruelty. But showed opposite, love's courage is, justice faith's extraordinary power. That horror, strangely, life's deepest spiritual lesson. Felipe appeared, hand on shoulder. All good? All good, Antoine smiled. Truly, they stood silent. Watching river flow, brother, heart-haunted. Bound by shared memory, love springs new light blanketed Normandy. Haunted month, etched village. DuPont history, no longer bleeding wound, but told tale of loss, struggle. Reclaimed peace life flowed, like Seine to sea. In that light, hope found.